Okay, hello everybody. Today, this lecture is going to be about data management, organization, and archival protocol for multimedia. That sounds like a lot of boring words. I'm not making any promises that this will be entertaining, but it will definitely be a good piece of information that everybody should have. Every month, I get at least one message from some student that lost their data, their computer crashed, and they don't have access to anything. While you're here in school, this is the best time for you to develop, create, and habits and get into assessing habits on proper data management, file management, and everything else that I'm going to teach here. Because when you get out into the real world and start getting jobs, it gets a little harder to learn on the go, and you will find that different industries have expected protocols that they want you to follow. And if you don't have a habit, if you don't understand why, if you don't really get it, then you will definitely fall behind. And I know some people have not been hired back because they just can't follow a simple naming protocol. When you're working by yourself doing a website and you're dealing with your own organization, that's one thing. But when you're working for a film company, a TV company, a multimedia platform company, that there's a lot of moving parts. Establishing protocols for naming, for order, folders, and archival, it's the difference between a task taking an hour and a task taking 10 hours. And that is really important when for bigger companies and productivity, when they really need things to work efficiently and they want to make sure that things don't just get lost in the pipeline. Okay, so things we're going to go: file management, data backup options, data synchronization, and backup software. And then a little Q&A. Okay, so first question: does your desktop actually look like that? Does your workspace look like that? And hopefully not. If it does, don't ever invite me to your workspace. I'd go crazy. I have OCD, and that would just drive me crazy.
Hey,
but
Aaron.
Yes?
Sorry, I think the slides aren't showing up on our end. We're just still seeing the title screen. It was moving earlier, but now it's stuck on the title screen.
Okay, let me share again. Is it moving now? No? All right.
No.
Let me try that again. Let me stop sharing. It did work before, right?
It did. There we go.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
That good?
Perfect.
All right, so now you know what I'm talking about. That desk, that work environment is not a good work environment. That causes a lot of issues. But obviously we're in a digital age, so the equivalent to that is having a computer desktop that looks like the bottom picture. You have no idea how many times I see students' desktop look just like that, and not exaggerating. I've actually taken a couple of screenshots of students' desktops as I'm working with them, helping them out, figure problems out with their system, and then realizing, yeah, this is a big problem, you know. So problems that happen with lack of organization is, where are your files? How can you make sense of anything? How can you find anything that way? How much time is being wasted trying to find those files? Finding the correct version, finding the latest version. How many times have you had to just restart something because you didn't find the correct version and just decided, it's been an hour already, let me just start it from scratch and redo it. Did you lose the data completely? Maybe you can never find it in that mess of space right there. And then running out of space. And then running out of space doesn't mean hard drive necessarily, meaning if that's your desktop, you're running out of visible desktop space. So the correct way is having a proper clean organization space where your desktop, whether it's your physical workspace or your actual computer desktop, is clean and it's pleasing, and you don't open up your laptop and there's an assault of disorganization there that begs for you to kind of work through it and clean it up, okay? So how do we do this? We start organizing by establishing folder hierarchies. That's one important thing. And then the other thing is creating a file naming system. Those are the two main things we're going to be discussing on this first half, okay? So there we go. What are the do's and don'ts? For starters, don't use your desktop to store your projects or your client data. Okay, just don't. And previous show indicate why. Don't use your documents folder or your downloads folder as storage for files. And I know that seems a little bit weird to say don't use your documents folder, where that's the default for Apple or Windows, or My Documents, I guess, for Windows. But I'll elaborate a little bit more. On the do's, every file in your system should be in a folder that represents it. And this is why I say don't use your documents folder. Don't use your downloads folder. Obviously, that becomes a big pit of stuff that you tend to just download and forget that it's there, and it just takes up gigabyte and gigabyte of data, and you just never find it again. But using your documents folder, and you basically dump singular files on your documents folder, and then you have your personal files, your MCDS files, your client files, all there without any organization. That's what I'm talking about, not using your documents folder as just a main dump site for files. What you need to create is a system where you have a folder and you have a root folder, let's say MCDS, and everything that's MCDS goes there. You have a personal folder, and in that personal folder, everything that is critical for you, you put it there. You create a work folder. Everything needs to be assigned a certain space so it's easy to find and retrieve, okay? Then you want to create a folder structure that makes it easy to find files quickly. So it's not just that you're creating, here's a work, here's personal, here's school. Let's develop that idea some more and get it to a point where it's streamlined and it's so efficient and it makes so much sense to you that it's easy for you to get into the habit of working that way. Okay, so folder hierarchy tends to be, here's your OS, here's your documents folder, and then let me create one folder, and inside that folder I'll create another one, and inside that folder create another one. And within these folders, there's a whole bunch of other files there spread out. And then at some point we create another folder just to kind of create a subcategory. But it's a very linear way of thinking, but not necessarily conducive to organization. There's another form of doing a folder hierarchy where it's called the tree format, where you have one main trunk, and then you have branches that break out into subjects. And to show that, I'll explain it through how I run, how I do folder hierarchy at my home studio and at the pro studio I work at, Fat Planet Studio, that I'm the chief engineer there. We have a staff of 6 engineers and assistant engineers and office manager that all of us work under the same hierarchy. Okay, let me show you. And the importance of this hierarchy is that all the employees, all the staff knows where everything is. If the office manager or the A&R director gets an email or a call from a client that says, I need a copy of this song, and all my examples are going to be songs or music related, but it all works in media. Client says, I need another copy of this song, this mix that Aaron did. I can't find it on my drive. Then whatever staff member can go to the network, find that client, find a folder where that is supposed to be, and within a minute, email them that file, and that's it. Client is happy. That happens by, again, here's your tree hierarchy. In all 3 studios at Fat Planet, A, B, and C room, the computer has a audio drive, has a backup audio drive, and then it has an OS drive. These are towers, so you have 3 different internal hard drives in these towers. And first thing that we do is we separate an operating system drive from an actual work drive. The idea with this is work drives need to be replaced a little more often, and sometimes when it gets to the point where a work drive has been used for 4 or 5 years, we might swap it just because there's newer, faster drives, or we don't want to risk having a drive that's taking a beating for so long and we swap for something new. But if the work drive is the same thing as the OS drive, then we're having to reinstall a new OS on the drive every time. Having an OS drive separate from your work drive allows us to update and maintain the computer in a different way. The other thing that happens is we don't only have a backup for the audio drive, we also have a backup for the OS drive. So if something happens that our OS crashes and something gets corrupted in that, we can literally pull that OS drive, put a backup OS drive, and minutes we're back up working, okay? Now, let's kind of break that down. Work drive, the one called audio drive. Within that audio drive, the first thing you will see is a folder called clients. We create a folder for clients, not just put all the clients there on the main root, because we want to keep a level of organization. Within that first tier, there might be some other categories that we might need, but the most important part is there's a folder called client. Within that folder, now we will list all the clients there. And we have the habit at Fat Planet of we create an account for each client on our accounting software, and that whatever name is on that accounting software, that is what we call the client folder. So there is a administrative name and tie between the work and the billing and department, okay? Another place that I work at will do clients and jobs, and those categories fall within that. So right now you see clients, client folder, then all the separate client folders, and then below that you have projects. In this other studio that I work at, instead of projects, we would have jobs, and that job is a number that's generated from our accounting software, from our admin, and they said, here's the job that you're billing. And that's important because if I am working with this client and I'm doing my timesheets for the work that I'm done, I'm billing against that job. And that folder is tied into everything that job falls under. And if there's any questions, if there's any problems, if there's any billing issues, you go to that folder with that job number, and admin or the manager can look and verify that the work I did for that job goes with the billing and all the data is there. Those are things you have to keep in mind when you're working at larger scales. When you're starting now, you don't really think of those things because you haven't been exposed to it. But again, it's all this is getting you prepared for that. So let's continue. Audio drive, work drive, client, and then you have client folders. Within those client folders, I will create a project. And in my world, it's music. So let's say I am working on album 2018, album 2019, album 2020, and there's going to be the title for that album is going to be there. Within that project, now there's going to be the Pro Tools sessions. Whether it's one Pro Tools session because we're just doing one song, or if it's an album and it's 10 songs, you're going to see 10 Pro Tools sessions there. Then you're going to have assets. Assets can be assets provided by the clientele, whether it's any type of media, whether it's video, whether here is this really interesting sound effect that I want to be used. If I'm working with a hip hop client, you have the name drops, the shout outs happen at the beginning, at the end. If I'm working with a specific producer, each producer has their shout outs, and I'm supposed to put those shout outs at beginning and end of a song that they worked in. So that falls under assets. Also, assets could be assets that I create. If I'm recording a band and I use a certain microphone and vocal, I use a certain rig for the guitar, and I use a certain rig for the piano, I take pictures of everything. Mic placement, the microphones, how I use, the gear that I use. I will take a picture of the front panel of the gear that I use so I can recall all the settings. So if in 2 months from now, the guitar says, you know what, I need to redo that guitar line, can we go back to the studio and recreate that sound, and I just want to change the melody up a little bit? I said, sure, no problem. Here's the amplifier that we used. Here are the microphones that I used. Here's how I placed them. Here's how I routed them. And these are the settings I put on the amplifier. Because if they're using one of our amplifiers, those are constantly being used by several people. If they're bringing their own amplifier, maybe they did gigs, and then with those gigs, they changed settings to something else, okay? So we'll have recall documentation. There's also reference material. When I am producing a band, let's say they want to sound like Linkin Park. They tell me, I love the guitars on this song, I love the drums on this song, and I love the vocal processing on this song. So they send me all that stuff. So as I'm producing songs, I'm referencing, going back. When I'm mixing those songs, I'm also referencing those ideas back. Then there's the deliverables. As I finish tracking one song and we're done with whatever we're going to do with that song, I print a rough mix of that song. And I put that rough mix on the deliverables. Within that deliverable folder, there's going to be a new folder that's going to be, what day is it today? Today's the 13th. It'll say 2020 11/13. So on the 13th of November, these are the rough mixes that we worked on. Then next week, I do another session. We work on more stuff. We add some more guitars. I do rough mixes at the end of all those songs, and I put them on the deliverables. That means, going back to my example before, if a staff member gets a call saying, can you send me what we did on November 13th I need to send a copy of that to the label. And then the staff member can now go to the deliverables and find it on that date and work that way. This format, this mentality works so good, and it gives you a peace of mind, okay? Let's move on to the OS drive column. On the OS, I tend to just leave the actual OS and all the applications that I need to run. But I will also use this for global assets. For example, we have a sample library for drums, for percussion. We have a sample library for instruments that all of us might want and have access to. Our audio drive cycles through, and we're constantly doing backups and purging the audio drive to make space for more space. So we don't want that data to be purged. We want that to be accessed forever for all our sessions. So that falls on the global access. On the other side, there's templates. Once I finished mixing a song, all the different effects, all the processing that I developed for that song, I might have created some really cool new ideas and techniques. So when I'm done with that song and the project is delivered, I'll go back to those songs and create templates of those Pro Tools sessions. So later, if a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm like, how did I do that on that song? I can go to the templates, open that session, and pull in that signal flow that I created, okay? And again, those are things that should be there kind of permanently for future sake, and then I can also just kind of copy paste that and take that with me wherever I go on another drive. But the workflow from an audio drive and the workflow from that OS drive is different, okay? Then you have Dropbox. Dropbox we use for deliverables also. If there are things that I need a whole band to listen to, for example, there's 5 members in the band, there's the A&R, and there's a record label exec that needs to hear work as we're done, I can copy paste from the deliverables folder for 1113 on the audio drive. I can copy that folder onto the Dropbox for that client and put it in a deliverables folder for it with that date, and then suddenly everybody gets a ping from Dropbox saying folder 1113 has been updated to the Dropbox, and everybody knows they can listen to it. Happens all the time. I'm on the road, I'm doing something, some client needs something for somebody. And I'm at a venue, at a show, I'm nowhere near the studio, I can open Dropbox from my phone, find the data, find the files, and send them a text with it, with a link, or send them an email with what they need. And now I am not stressing about, I need to finish this gig at midnight and drive back to the studio to get what the client needs, and then drive home and get home possibly at 2 in the morning. I could attend to the client's needs then and there, okay? I also do that because when I'm producing things, if I'm driving and I want to just evaluate the work that I did last week, I can open up that Dropbox folder, listen to those sessions, listen to that data, make notes on, oh, this cool idea that I need, I want to change this, I want to change this arrangement, and I can audition any of that work at any time, okay? So, let's give you a little example of that. So this is my work drive at my home studio, which again is very much like the work environment at Fat Planet. So you have, if you look at the left column, you have the client folder, and then the first column right there is all the clients. The next column you'll see is all the different projects within that column. You have masters, and that's labeled with a 00, because that tends to be where the final product of that album gets stored. So I always want that folder to be on the top. So I label it 00 masters, and I don't have to sort through all the folders to figure out where the final product is. That's where it is at the very top. So then you'll see that there's band templates, there's an asset, there's media assets, there's reference track assets, there's rough mixes, there's your deliverables. But then you have Hollow Heart album and Mind is a Scary Place album, and those are actual projects. When you look within that project folder, you see all the songs that are there, and all those songs are all Pro Tools sessions, okay? And if you look within that project folder, there's mix recall and there is mix template. So those are two asset folders that pertain specifically to that album. I may have a global version of that I might want to go back to it at some point or the other, because if we dialed something really good for a guitar tone that the next album comes in, I might want to keep that on the permanent assets list for that client, okay? But you see the row all the way to the column all the way to the right. You have all the songs, and you see all those little color tags on it. Those color tags are indicators that I use to tell me the progress of that specific song. And I create that color tags for myself that can be whatever you need. So green means I probably finished recording everything that I need to record, and I am ready to start editing. Then I might put it into purple, and purple means I have finished editing everything on it. Then the next step is mix preparation, which I go through everything, purge what I don't need from each session, and do a copy of it, and I work off that copy. And then now I label that, let's say, yellow. And yellow, I can start working on the mixes. When I'm finished mixing a song, I'll label it orange, because I've actually mixed the song, send it to the record label and to the artist for them to evaluate. Once the song has been finally approved, I'll label it as red. And that means I am done with that song. Now it's off to the next engineer at the next facility to do the work. So I try to keep myself organized within that project. I also have a spreadsheet that I'll use to put all my notes together to follow this. But as I'm working from one song to the other, I can quickly at a glance see where I am, okay? The other important thing is, and you see my note at the bottom, use your favorites to get quick access to your folders. You use a lot. Within that tree hierarchy, there's a lot of folders that can be happening. So if you look at my left column, you'll see clients, which are all my audio clients. You will see the ALG FAT folder. That is a Dropbox folder that is shared between my personal work Dropbox and the Fat Planet Dropbox, and I use that as a data transfer folder. So I finish something in my home studio, mixing it. I put it in that ALG Fat folder. So when I show up the next day to the studio, I can go to the big room with the big speakers, and I can listen to the work I did in that big speakers, because that room sounds very different from my room at home, and I can sit down and make all the notes. And then if I work on something at Fat Planet that I need to take home and evaluate or work at home, I can drop it on that ALG Fat. By the time I get home, all that data is there. So it's a way for me to transfer data back and forth. Then you'll see like that folder from Blue Animal. That is a project that I was working on for 6 months straight, and I was constantly, almost on a day-to-day basis, accessing it. So I just put a link to it there. Then you'll see client backup. Same client folder, there is a backup of the whole thing. When I am done for the day, I will go to the client backup folder and go to that client folder and back up all the data for the day. And that's just as a habit of anything new, I go to client backup and drag and drop it there. You'll see full sale, there's a full sale and there's a full sale Dropbox, same thing. I use that to keep all the data for classes on my iPad, on my phone, on my work laptop, on my full cell laptop, wherever I need, I can access it, okay? I think you guys get the point. So now, Pro Tools, if you look all the way to the column to the right, now you're looking at the folder hierarchy of Pro Tools per se. When you create a Pro Tools session, when you create Adobe Premiere, Adobe Audition, Photoshop, all of them have a folder hierarchy. And understanding that hierarchy and using it to your advantage is really, really important, okay? You will see that there's Pro Tools sessions, the Pro Tools session there. You have your audio files, you have your rendered files, you have some other assets right there. So you have plugins, session backup, and wave cache. Those are asset folders. And then Pro Tools automatically creates a bounce files, which is your deliverables, okay? So in many ways, how we set up all the data for the studios and the folders for the studios follows an industry standard that a big company like Avid uses for Pro Tools. So now, what should a folder hierarchy for you guys look like? Try this. You should probably have an external hard drive that is your work drive. And in that work drive, you have a folder that you call NCDS. Within that NCDS folder, you create a new folder per class. And then every project that you work per class, you put it there. Within that course folder, now you create all the different projects, all the different tasks that you're assigned. And then again, you can, at that point, you can create whatever organization you want that is needed for that class. But it's important because at some point, 2 years down your degree, you get to Kevin's class and he's wanting for you to update your portfolio and get some more things. Now you have an easy way to go to all your different classes, look at your portfolios, look at the work you do, pull assets and add it. Same thing if you're doing a job interview and you're trying to get work done, you're trying to do a sales pitch and you need assets, here's an easy way for you to pull things from NCDS, from whatever future worksite you work, okay? And then having a backup drive for everything, and we'll get into that as the next subject. And then in your OS drive, global assets could be any type of pictures, videos, effects, any type of assets that you feel you need access to all the time. And that doesn't mean that you leave those assets there. You can just have that as a retention pond. And then when you're working on a new project, you just drag and drop those assets from that global assets folder onto that project folder. So then when you're done with that project and you back up that project and you purge it from your work drive, everything that you used for that file, for that project, is within that file, okay, within that folder, sorry. Also, then having something like Dropbox for deliverables, whether it's projects, for NCDS classes, or for clients, you work that way, okay? Now, let's get into file naming system. Where we're at with, okay. Okay, good. So file naming best practices. Files should be named consistently. File names should be short. You should avoid special characters or spaces. For example, file space naming space system. You should do it a file underscore name underscore system, or just eliminate spaces. If anybody's used applications like Dropbox and you send a link to a file that's on Dropbox and you leave spaces, what you'll find is Dropbox will create a naming convention that says file, %, naming, %, system. Because for catalogs, for databases, spaces are a problem. You can't read or quantify spaces correctly. But if you assign a character to it, now that naming convention works a lot easier. So a large database like Dropbox, where it's handling all these files, will want to put something in between. If you put an underscore or a dash, that works great. And I'll actually tend to use a combination of dash and underscore for my naming systems, okay? Backslashes, forward slashes, don't use those. That causes a whole other thing, and that can be a sign of a directory. You don't want to confuse your computer that way. Now, although the thing is include versions. So let's get into a couple of these. What should you use on a naming convention? Date of creation, and you should start it with the year, then the month and the date. And the year first is really important, depending on what you're trying to do, but it is important to put the year first. Because if you've been working with a client for 10 years, you might not remember the name of the project, but you might remember the year, or in our case, I can go to our accounting software and say, what year, what month did we do this project? And I'll pull up, and the invoices are for that year, job number that year, and I can go and look at the hierarchy and say, here's that project done this year. And when you look at your at all the files and folders, everything will be chronological by year. Way easier way to manage this, okay? Obviously have a client name, obviously have some sort of project name. Job number, again, could replace the project name. It's one or the other. If you want to get into something with job number. A short description can be very, very helpful. And I'll give an example why now. And location can be also very helpful. If you're doing film, if you're doing any type of video, if you're doing any on-location filming, adding a little 2-3 letter tag on it saying, this was from this project that we filmed in Nebraska or Orlando or St. Augustine, wherever you're at, is big help, okay? And then again, labeling your versions. Okay, so now look at the right column. Here's an example of one of my clients. I work with the university, WUCF. I work with their radio station. And every month, I do a live jazz show. It's an hour show. We broadcast it, and I recorded it, and later I do final mastering and editing to it, and then the film department from WUCF and me work together on getting a half-an-hour version of that performance on film to air on their PBS channel. So I've been working with them for 7 years. So now my client, WUCF, the location is Studio A Live, because they have several different studios. The year 2020 with the date, and the project name, which is Ella and the Boss, or Layla or Daniela. Those are the actual artists that were playing and performing that day, okay? And it's important to have all that, because I get an email from accounting from WUCF, and they say, I need information on the project that you did on this date. But when I talk to the radio station manager, she emails me and says, can you give me another copy of Layla's songs? So having that on your main folder helps so much to organize and keep track of everything, okay? Here's another example. Here's why short descriptions matter. Here's one song that I work with for a band, and I'll kind of go through a couple things. You see at the very bottom, it just says searching. That is the very first version of the session I did. That's when we started recording the whole band. 4-piece band, done. Then next week, we started doing overdubs. Day one of overdubs, we were just doing some keyboard parts, and we're doing some other guitar parts. And then we hired a different guitarist outside of the band to do some parts. So we did an overdub, and I wanted to label it Peter Guitar because I needed to come back to it a couple times and do different things on it, okay? Then I hired a world percussionist, so I did the percussion version. Then I did vocal sessions on it, and we spent a whole day doing vocals. And then a month later, the singer comes and says, you know what? I changed my mind. I want to address the vocals in a different way. Let's go back and redo them. So I labeled it New Vocals. Because if I didn't, I might just have a problem of trying to sort out all the data. There's other things like, there's a cello session, okay? Then when I was done with all the production, then I did editing. And within editing, I try to keep track of everything that I do. The first day I sit down and I do all the editing, there it goes. I might do one whole pass on the editing. And then I listen to it a day later and realize I need to tighten a couple of things down. Let me call it edit 2, just in case. If I don't like what I did, I can always go back to the first version of it and pull it from there, resources from there. I did, as you see, I did an edit 1, and an edit 2, a 2.1, and a 2.2. Because I kept changing my mind and trying to work the song differently, and there were drastic enough changes that I needed that resource there, okay? Now, once I'm done with all that stuff, you see at the bottom, this is purge. I literally made a copy of the session and purged everything that I did not use. So what was there was only what I was going to use for the final mixing, okay? Now, when I'm doing an actual mix of the song, I will create tons of versions. I will sit down for 4 hours, do a mix, call it mix 1. I go to the car, listen to it, don't like several things, sit back on it. In the computer, first thing I do is call it mix 2, and I make all my changes. Listen to it again in the car, come back, call it mix 3. Listen to it 2 days later, come back, and I keep calling it. Including in this session, if you look down, at some point it goes from mix to new sum mix. I had to label that differently because I bought a new piece of gear that completely changed the sound of my room, and I wanted to establish a cutoff point of working with a new environment. So I relabeled it that way, okay? All these are my way of processing this. You come up with your own ways, but having that safety net of versions is really, really important. There are different things you can do within Photoshop where you can create your own layers. When you're video editing, it is very helpful to have versions of it just in case. Also, you can back up things in a different way, okay? So let's take a quick pause before we go to the next topic. Do you guys have any questions on that? Any of you?
So all the way back to the beginning, you said that do not use your documents and to use your desktop. Isn't that kind of contradicting the beginning where you also said keep your desktop clean and organized?
No, so sorry. Do not use your desktop for anything.
Oh, okay.
You should always have that clean. All you should see there are the hard drives, and that's it. If you want to put some personal pictures of something for yourself, cool. But nothing on your desktop should be work related, school related, client related. Nothing should be there.
Got it.
What you need to determine is create within your documents folder. I'm not saying don't use your documents folder,
Right.
because right now I can open my documents folder, and you will see that within that document folder, you will see a whole bunch of different folders. I have, back to the beginning where I'm saying every file has to have a folder that it represents, right? So I have a folder for clients, I have a folder for assets, I have a folder for personal stuff, I have a folder for financial information, family medical information. I have folder under folder under folder. What you won't see in my documents folder is I just dump all sorts of files of everything, all categories indiscriminately, and it just lays there, and then I'm having a hard time trying to find where's what.
No, yeah, I totally understand that. Like,
okay.
Yeah, that's how I have my documents have everything's in section, like in a folder of a folder. So even under my company folder, just like you said, how you have your clients, I have my clients, but then I also have my social media calendar and different folders, but they're aligned and organized and everything, like you said.
Perfect. Then you're doing it right. Joya, did you have a question?
This is more of a smaller question. So you talked about not saving files in downloads. Are you a fan of emptying your downloads folder at any point?
Yes. I mean, periodically I do it. Normally, I'll download folders from I'll download data from the downloads folder, and immediately I move it to where I need it to be. Some resources will fall there. Sometimes I hit download on something from an email and it goes there. I may forget, but I try to periodically erase that. Also, because, and we're going to get into the next subject of backups, I make it a point to not back up anything that's on my downloads folder, because it's probably trash. And if I haven't moved it from there, I don't know how long it's been there, I probably don't need it. So it's just a habit of, it's not the proper place to keep anything. If it's there, I should just erase it. That doesn't mean that I won't look there and realize, oh yes, I downloaded that a month ago, and then I got a call from somebody and I forgot that I was downloading that. Let me grab that and put it where it needs to be now. I can be a person that can be a bit scatterbrained. My wife tells me I am like the nutty professor, where I can just hyper focus on something and just forget everything else, or my brain will jump from one thing to the other and back and forth. So creating habits like these helps me a lot, keeping myself in check. And I create habits to help me be more productive, more efficient, and work better, and give the impression to my clients that I got it all down. I'm solid, because I've created the habits for it. I might have glimpses of it here or there, but when you have a backup of a backup, then you tend to have a greater peace of mind for it. Aaliyah, you got any questions?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm just looking.
No problem. Okay, let's switch to the next. So the next topic is data backup. The why and the how on doing data backups, okay? Why should you do a data backup? That little meme, I just had to post it because you have no idea how many times I get that. At least once a month, I get something from one student saying, oh, I lost everything. And my first question is, where's your backup? And the follow-up answer is, oh, I never do one. Okay, well, there you go. So why should you do a backup? In this case, because your grade can depend on it. Also, your career can depend on it when you leave Full Sail. Also, because the larger the project, the more time and money it's invested in it. If you lose something, that replacing the cost of all that work is going to fall on you because it's your fault for losing the project. Let's go to my world. If I'm working with a client and we hire a 12-piece string section, that 12-piece section costs $800 an hour to have them in the studio. Plus the studio time is $100 an hour. So that's $900 an hour. I work with them for 5 hours. And my hard drive crashes and dies the next day. I am now responsible for 5 hours at $900 an hour to replace that for the client. Because sure as heck, client is not going to pay for that. And not just the money and the hit that I'm going to take, but now I have to wait until I can book the 12 same musicians all over again. That could be a week from now, that could be a month from now. And if I'm in the middle of symphony season, that could be 2 or 3 months from now, and I have just caused a whole bunch of delays, okay? Now, how should you back up your data? The more the merrier always comes to mind. And I know that seems kind of, to a point, obvious, but at the same point, what is too much? I can tell you that what is too little is only 1 copy. 2 copies are preferable. 3 is even better. And this is something that I do. I have the data on me. I have a backup of the data on me. And I have another backup of the data on a safe location. That could be, I have an external drive with all the data. I have a second external drive with all the data. And then the copy of that data is in my home computer. And that's it. Or it could be on the network at Fat Planet. And the data is on the network there. Okay. The idea of having backups in more than one location is if you work from home and somebody breaks in your house, steals your laptop, steals your hard drive, and now you lost your main source and your backup, you're out of luck. But if you now have a second backup online, at your parents' house, at the client's place, at your neighbors, wherever, now you're okay. You could have a safe, in-wall safe, and you just put data there, okay? How should you back it up also includes what things to use. External drives, cloud services, RAID systems, and NAS systems, okay? And then also having the proper backup software, because it's very tedious and prone to error if your backup involves you hand dragging and dropping every new file, okay? So now devices. External hard drives, hard drive docks, and NAS system, RAID systems, and clouds. Let's go one by one. External hard drives. Everybody knows that. I have one in my bag right now. Actually, I have one in my bag that's my work drive, and I have another one in my bag that is my school drive backup. So everything that I teach for all my university classes, I have a backup there also. So I have 2 different work drives there. And all that class stuff is also on my laptop, but just in case something happens to my laptop, I can plug into a computer here and I'm ready to go. I don't include USB drives here, the little USB drives, because that is not a good place for a backup. Those can be lost way too easily. Those work well for transferring data. If you're going to take data from one place to the other, if I'm going to drop off the project that I did at the radio station, I'll give it the front desk, leave a USB drive, then the station manager can pull the data from there, and then the next time I come to do another job, she gives me the USB, and we keep transferring that. But that is for transferring, not for backups. Okay? So having a nice external hard drive is great. USB 3 tends to be the new norm. It is fast enough, efficient enough, and it's universal. Now, you can have different qualities of external hard drives. You have like a simple Seagate with a plastic case. That's fine. You do have to be careful because if you drop them, that's it. There's several other companies like LaCie makes a external drive within a thick rubber casing. If you're using those hard drives to record data on a film set, on location, if you're going to be moving and traveling with it, it's probably a good idea to get a rugged external hard drive like that with some padding, with some shock resistance, so it's not going to take a hit. Remember, traditional hard drives are plates that are recorded on. Basically, you have a whole bunch of CDs in there. If you rattle this too much, you can damage the mechanisms. If you get an SSD, a solid state hard drive, that's basically the same. It's flash drive memory. There's nothing mechanical there, so those might be a little more roadworthy, more rugged in that case. Okay, they also work faster. Time will tell what the shelf life of those are, but those at least can take a little more beating because they're nothing mechanical. Okay. Now, I tend to always travel with an external hard drive. At home, I use this. This is a drive dock. And you see 2 slots there. I buy bare hard drives, just raw hard drives without any enclosure. And I put that hard drive within that socket, and that goes USB 3 onto my computer. And I use this as a purge archival backup. So I finished this project. I give my clients 1 to 3 months to get back to me and say, I still need a change, I still need this, I still need that. After that 3-month period, grace period is gone, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to hear from them for a while. I will plug in a hard drive and I will sit everything within that project folder and drag and drop it to that external hard drive. Once I'm done archiving all the data from that, from my work drive, I pull that work drive out and I do this. So I have just your typical, whether it's a 3.5 or a 2.5 external hard drive. The good thing with this is an external hard drive, 2 terabytes is $50 right now. I don't recommend you doing archival hard drives in increments larger than 2 terabytes. Because if this hard drive fails, you really don't want to have that much data get lost, okay? And if you notice that drive dock that I showed you there has 2 slots. that button that you see in the front, let me go back, see if it lets me go back immediately. Okay, that blue circle there is a button. I put one drive in the back, archive everything there that I want to, and then I put another blank hard drive in the other slot. I hit that button and the drive dock automatically clones the data from one hard drive to another. So I have 2 copies of everything that I've archived right off the bat, okay? And this is the system that we have at Fat Planet. Each of those are external hard drives. We keep the external hard drives within the static bag that they come in. It's that plastic bag. Static bag avoids any buildup of static electricity to creating type of short circuits or fried hard drive. So it stays within that bag. And that piece of paper that you have there is literally a screenshot printout of all the data that's there, okay? You have a copy of that somewhere else on a database, but if I need to just walk in and pull data from a client, I can pull that. Each hard drive has a sticker on it that says drive backup 1 through 19, I think is where we're at now. And then that paper says backup 19. I can open up the sheet and realize, yes, this is the hard drive that has that project from this client, and I can pull that, put it on the dock, pull the data off of it, and work on it. Okay?
Aaron, how long, real quick, how long would you say, how many years worth of files would you say is in that picture? Like 2002?
Oh. I think
I was just curious.
at least 2011.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Maybe, because previous to this, if you go to the attic at the studio, there is a wall basically from floor to ceiling with DVD backups of all projects, and everything was there. And that took much longer to do. And at some point we were almost considering doing Blu-ray backups, but they decided hard drives got so inexpensive that we just went to hard drives. And one thing that's important, and I know it comes up, is this costs money. There's no reason for any of you to not bill this to the client. Bill for your time for archiving it, and bill for the material costs. For example, every time we get a new client, they have to sign in a client session agreement. Within that client session agreement, there is a whole section on data management. That first paragraph says, we are responsible for all your data while the project is ongoing. Next paragraph, go ahead.
Like your term, you know, like the user term agreement or whatever you want to call it, like the, I agree to this, like.
Yes, we call it a client session agreement. So rules and regulations, behavior, what is allowed, also just some clients want to make sure that their data stays private. We assure them that none of this is going to be leaked, none of this is taken outside of the studio, all those things. The data management is a big topic because clients always assume that we will keep everything for them forever. That's a big responsibility that we're not willing to take on our shoulders by ourselves. So, go ahead.
I guess if you're allowed to say this, would you say that you've ever had like a conflict with, you know, a customer or a client in this case where it's like, you know, something's gone wrong, or, you know, like they think that, I don't know, you know, that you didn't save it correctly or whatever, you know, something like that with the files?
On an individual case, not that I've been through that in the years that I've done it. If you're talking about archives and backups and stuff, we keep everything.
I just didn't know what you would do in that case of like, you know, like if a client, you know, like said like, oh, you know,
Expecting something from us.
yeah, that's what I meant.
So then let me finish explaining this. So then on our agreements, we will say, one, we are responsible for the data while the project is happening. And we state within that paragraph that we do a backup, a daily backup of all the data. So there's the hard drive in the computer, the backup hard drive in the computer, and then there is a online network backup that all the computers have access to. And then we run scripts to back up everything there. So there's about 3 copies of everything at all points. When the project is done, on the client session agreement, we tell them you have 1 month to bring your own hard drive and get your data off of our hard drives. If you want us to keep your data, it's $50 fee. And if you want to, and we recommend that you bring your own hard drive. We'll give you all the data once the project is done and paid for. And you also pay the $50 fee just in case now your project is in 2 places. It's going to stay in our vault in the attic. And this attic is within a separate location. It's a fire resistant room, whatever else. So there's some safety protocols there. There's their own fire alarm in that room and everything else. We give them that month. What actually happens is maybe a fourth to a third of the clients actually bring a hard drive and back up their data. And maybe, I'd say maybe a third to half at some point call back a year, 6 months, 5 years later and say, oh, I need a copy of this and this and this and this. And this is what we do. As soon as the project is done, we archive everything. Whether they pay the $50 fee or not, we archive everything. Because 5 years from now, when they call and say, oh, by the way, I need this data, I need it for this and this and this and this, we pull up our accounts, we look at the invoice and it says they did not pay for the backup, and we tell them, oh, we might have the data. I'm not sure. You did not pay for the $50 backup fee. So it's a flip of the dice if we kept or not, because you are responsible for your data once the project is done. If we go there and we find it, they are overjoyed, and we tell them, by the way, it's a $50 archival fee. You didn't pay it then, but you need to pay it now. That covers for your hard drive that you just used, and for the manual labor and time it takes to do that, for the cataloging it takes to do that, okay?
Yeah, that's really smart, actually. You know, like, I'm thinking about, like, just the way you broke it down and everything. You know, like, you never know, because, like when I came to Full Sail, for example, you know, people are like, oh, you know, like, what kind of photos do you take? You know, like, all that, or, you know, what are some projects you've worked on? And I'm like, you know, let me look on my phone real quick. And of course, you know, I hadn't had a MacBook before. And then, you know, like, I'm transferring stuff everywhere, and, you know, I want to have a backup of it, you know, in case, like, something like this comes up. You know, when I first started out, like, my videos were, you know, terrible, you know, like, compared to, like, what they are now. And it's kind of cool to see, you know, like, the process and everything. You never know. But yeah, that's actually really smart. And plus, you know, that you still let them pay the fee if they never actually paid the fee in the first place. But yet they're coming back to you and like, hey, I do need this, you know, down the road. and you're like, yeah, I can do it, but here's a fee, and it makes sense because, you know, like you're taking your time out of your day to do that. So yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah, time, material, and you know, half of the clients will, excuse my language, will just bitch at you for how dare you? $50, that's my material, that's my data. I already paid for the data. Yes, you did. But you are responsible for your data. And if you really cared that much about your work, you would have brought your own hard drive because we told you to do it at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you just paid $2,000 to do a project, another $50 is nothing for you to ensure that your $2,000 is safe, right?
That's really cheap, mostly, you know.
Yes.
To them, like, and to you too, like, really, either way, there shouldn't be like a problem. But I mean, yes, there can come a conflict of it. Like, my family has a lot of rental houses and everything in here in Illinois, and you know, like, there's an application fee, and it's like, you know, $25, and like a typical, you know, like rental property thing. And if they don't get end up, even if we don't let them end up renting it because, you know, something on their files or something, you know, they still have to pay that. And so, you know, same like with you were saying, you know, you lost it, you know, it's kind of your fault, but you're gonna have to pay $50. You're probably gonna spend that $50 on like some new equipment anyways. So
right. And to answer your previous question, if there's a problem that we do not have the data, or it did not get saved properly, or we do not have everything that they needed, then if they didn't pay the $50, then that still wipes our slate clean and says, well, you didn't pay the $50, so that means you didn't want us to keep the data, so we did not keep your data. And that is on the client session agreement that they have to sign before we do any work with them. Okay?
And it's all in like the little print too. I mean, you know, like, of course, like, some people don't read the little print, but
well, and we don't, our A&R staff or sales team, they don't just give them the sheet, sign it, and that's it. They go with the client line by line and explain everything to them. Especially, and I've really enforced that on the sales team, that this needs to be explained to them clearly. And then every staff engineer at some point will say, when project is almost done, are you bringing a hard drive to back it up? And I will ask a client on the first time, please come with an external hard drive. I will back it up to your external hard drive. That drive will stay here at the studio in our storage space until the project is done. And when we're done, I'll do one more backup, and then you take it with you. I encourage it because it relieves me of the burden. It relieves the staff and the studio of the liability of it.
yeah, definitely. I know, like, for example, like, one musician or one artist really, it caught my attention of doing this, like, Billie Eilish and her brother, Phineas, you know, they
Mhm.
started out making music just right in her bedroom, you know, she's
Right. Well, they're
18.
still all doing everything out of their bedroom.
Yeah, and they're still doing it. I mean, and the thing is, with going on with this, it's like all those files, you know, like, I can't imagine like how they do their process. I think that would be really interesting to hear about, you know, because how big she is in the music industry, and, you know, just going along with that. But I think it's definitely important because I know that they put one of her first big songs uh, that blew up was Ocean Eyes, and I think it was Logic Pro. They partnered with them, and they actually put the entire track and how everything, you know, like,
Was laid out.
yeah, laid out, like how they actually did it, and it was really cool. It's like, obviously he kept that. Why wouldn't you not keep that anyways? But you know, and people can go on there, like if you have Logic Pro, you know, somewhere on there, and you can look and see how the song was literally made. You know, they're not keeping any secrets. You can see, you know, everything, all the adjustments that they've made and whatnot, and it's, you know, it helps them, and it shows, you know, other people, you know, how their work is done. And so
Right. And to your point with Billie Eilish, anytime you sign a record deal with a label, when the project is done, the label wants everything. They want a copy of all the data, and they archive it themselves in their own facility to make sure that that any you know 10, 20 years from now, they're going to do the remaster, the remixes, the re this, re that. Somebody wants to take Billie Eilish's vocal and do something else. Look at Beatles' Cirque du Soleil show. It is the different tracks from different songs. There's just the vocals with new music under it. There's just the guitar line with some other music on it, because they had all that archived so they can pull the different resources. So labels want that. And part of doing all these backups and archivals and naming structure and folder hierarchy goes also with a big corporation. It's going to want you to follow these protocols. So then when the project is done, you deliver things based on their protocol. And I worked with one producer who I kept telling him, this is Warner Brothers you're working with. They're going to want things delivered a certain way. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm just going to send the hard drive there. As long as they have it, they don't care. 3 weeks later, he gets an email from Warner Brothers saying, we are going to bill you for $2,500 to have our engineers archive, organize, name, and process this correctly to our industry standards because you didn't do it.
that is insane. Oh my God.
Yes.
It's all about listening and, like, you know, like paying attention and asking questions. Like, oh my
Right.
God. I see Joy in your head too. Like, yeah, like Joy's right there with me. I see, yeah. But like, oh my gosh, that's such a big, when you said 2000, I was like, oh my gosh.
2000. So of course, you know what the first thing he did was call me,
Oh,
screaming, Aaron, get over here. These guys want to bill me $2,500 for this. This is crazy. I've never heard of this. I'm like, hello? I told you about this weeks ago, that this was going to happen. I am surprised you want to charge you $2,500, but I told you this is what we expect. This is an industry standard. So he's like, okay, Aaron, well, whatever needs to happen, whenever you can you come in tomorrow and just fix this? I'll pay you whatever. So of course, I billed him nicely for that work, and he was happy to pay it because it was much less than $2,500. It took me a whole afternoon to organize and relabel and put everything together how I needed it. But as soon as that new hard drive got sent, they said, okay, good, no problem, done. Never heard again from it.
Wait, you never heard again from the guy?
From Warner Brothers.
Oh, from Warner Brothers. Oh.
As soon as they received my version of the data, they were happy. This is all good. This is correct. We're just going to put it on the shelf and no more complaints.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's, I mean, like, you know, it's the difference right there. Like, and it's kind of like, gosh, I can't even imagine that. Just that, oh, I would be so frustrated if I were in your position, Aaron. You'd be like, well, I told you so, you know.
Well, when he's the producer and he's calling the shots and he's paying for me, all I can do is advise him. And it would have been bad if I wouldn't have given him the heads up, and then it would have been one thing. But what was good is I told him about it. It happened exactly like I told him it would happen. And then after that, he never doubted me for anything else. And I've been still working with him for about 15 years. And when something happens, he calls me and says, how do I deal with this? Because because I've been prepared, I'm organized, I'm on top of things, and And my clientele has an ease of mind because I follow all these procedures. I've invested the time to learn this, and that's it. It pays to learn all this nerdy computer stuff. And for you guys, you're in computer land from now. So you have to know all this. You have to learn about all this. You guys are not just creative people. You are also have to flip a hat and be computer tech IT guys. Okay? So let's move on. More geeky stuff. Has any of you heard what a NOS is? A network attached storage.
Wait, are you talking about Lil Nas X? The
No, but
I actually really wanted to say that.
But when I did a Google search on images of NOS, guess what popped up?
Lil Nas X?
Yes. It definitely was not a hard drive.
Oh, okay.
I hope not. I hope Nas pop up before Little Nas X. Please. Jesus.
I'm sure there's some computer geek has made some meme about NOS, the rapper artist versus a hard drive, but I didn't find one anyway. So
make one and then I'll put it on a t-shirt or something.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be the back of our t-shirt, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, nice.
Okay.
What is
So
like
then,
myself into?
well, you started it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a small version of a NOS. It is basically a hub for you to put hard drives. And this particular version, the little slot you see in the bottom is a pull-out tab. So you can put 2 hard drives in there, and when those 2 are filled to capacity, you can pull them out, archive them in the bag, label them, and put 2 new fresh hard drives, put them back into that slot, and keep working on that as a storage facility. So it is called a network attached storage. So there's a pull-out tray, as you can see the hard drives in there. It is a network attached storage because you communicate with these hard drives through an Ethernet cable. So if you have a router or a hub at home, you connect that hub, you connect the NOS to the hub, and on the other port, you connect your laptop or your computer tower, and then it just pops up on your network as a network localized hard drive. In our facility at Fat Planet, there are 3 studios, and the office has access to this NOS. At the end of every session, we run a script that takes everything from that client's work done that day, backs it up to the NOS. And then we shut down the computer for that day. That means that if the next day the client calls and wants a copy of whatever was done that day, the staff member, another engineer, or whatever, doesn't have to go to that room, turn on the computer, wait for it to load, find the file, and send it from that computer, and then shut it down. Now, they can go to the office computer, go to the NOS on the network, pull the data, and send it directly from there. There are versions of this NOS that we can get right now that have a VPN, a virtual private network, to create your own cloud storage. So you can have this hooked up to a router system, create a remote location access to the VPN, and this becomes your other location storage. You're at a site, you're for a couple days at a hotel or a motel, depending what the budget is. You can now take all the data that you finished working on that day, back it up to your little external drive, and then leave that backing up to your NOS at home, and just leave the computer running while you sleep, or you're watching Netflix or whatever else you're doing. And now it's at at a secondary location safe.
So
Okay?
how far could that work, I guess?
It's internet.
Oh, it's like, okay, through the hub, like literally what you were just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
To work with the VPN though.
Some of these NOS have a built-in cloud storage software.
Okay.
That you sit down, you program, you establish the software, you probably put their version of the software on your computer, you put a password, you encrypt everything, and then boom, you access everything.
Okay.
And if you see there's a USB 3 hub on it, which in some cases, that is a way for you to hook up devices for you to manage it, or you could put external hard drives there that will suddenly pop up on the NOS network. So you'll see the NOS, and then you'll see another USB hooked up to that NOS, and now you can drag and drop and purge everything from the NOS to that external hard drive, unplug it, and then store it.
Are you talking about, you said the USB 3, are you talking, when you say that, do you mean like the USB-C?
No, if you look at the back of the on the picture, there's a USB with a blue line on it.
Blue line on it.
That
Oh,
okay. Internally, there's that blue line, blue plastic line instead of a white line. That means the white means USB 1, USB 2 generation. USB 3 generation is tagged with the blue. Then there's USB-C, which is on your guys' current Apple computer laptops.
What's the one in the bottom left-hand corner? It looks like a lock symbol.
That is exactly that. It's a lock.
Oh.
That's I believe some of these will have a key that you lock it so nobody can open the slots and take the hard drives without the key.
Oh, it's like Dear Diary. It's like Dear Diary.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's cool. There's so much to it. Like okay, yeah, we're getting. Okay, I love it.
So this is getting more and more technical, but I just want you guys to know the different levels of things that you can do. The good thing is a RAID system now, you can buy something like this on Newegg for anywhere from $200 to $300, and it'll come with the hard drives already. And then you can get it with 2 terabytes, 4 terabytes to 8 terabytes. You can start with 2 terabytes, and when they're done, then you just buy whatever else you want, and you pull out the trays, you remove the screws, you tear it out, put it back in, put the screws back in, and that's it. It's really simple. Okay? So as you build your network, your clientele, and you're doing bigger jobs, you want to always leave a margin of that profit for expanding on this. And you might as well put up front in the client session agreement that costs for storage are included, and these are the fees. And on the final invoice, you just put a line item, storage fees, which could be $50, could be $100, depending what you're doing. And that's it. You can also force the client to have a cloud-based backup for their data that they now pay themselves. And you create the account for them, you send them the bill, and then now you kind of program it so then whatever's happening with that data gets backed up to their own cloud, and they're responsible. You just kind of give them the keys to the house, and that's it. So
with the cloud, would an example be iCloud, for example? Like you're
paying? We'll get into that now.
Okay, cool.
All right. So next thing is something called a RAID. It's a redundant array of independent drives. Sounds like a lot of IT gibberish, but it's basically, if you go back to the NOS picture where you saw 2 hard drives. So ideally, those 2 hard drives doesn't mean that if you have 2 hard drives of 2 terabytes each, it does not mean that you have 4 terabytes of storage. You can use it as 2 independent drives and have 4 terabytes of storage, but that's not what it's best suited for, especially if you're using a NOS. It is best suited for you to use a RAID system. And what happens is you set up the NOS as a RAID system, and when you are on your laptop, you hook up to the network, the NOS shows up, you click on get info, it has 4 terabytes of data on it because it has 2 hard drives, but the information only sees 2 terabytes because it's creating a clone of the other drive. You need to buy 2 drives, exactly the same model, preferably same size, and then when you drag and drop any data to the RAID, as you see on the little drawing, data package A1 appears on both columns. Both hard drives have the exact same thing in the exact same order. And if one of these hard drives crashes, you have a copy of everything. If it crashes, you pull it out, you put another hard drive of the exact same thing, you copy the data over, and you're back in business. Okay, so that is a RAID 1. 2 hard drives, it could be 3 hard drives, it could be 4 hard drives. That means all 4 hard drives will have the exact same amount of data. So you're not increasing the amount of storage, you're just doubling and tripling the amount of buffer safety that you have because of more backups, okay? There are several other different RAIDs, but the 2 that are important for you to know within the subject of backups is RAID 1 and RAID 5. So this gets a little more complicated. A RAID 5 starts with a minimum of 3 hard drives. And you see the little packets of blue and then the orange packets, right? So this is, in a very simple way, this is what happens. You have 3 hard drives. The data is distributed through all 3 hard drives, okay? You have the copy of A on all 3, copy, or in this case there's 5, so there's A on all 5, B on all 5, C on all 5, D and E. What the orange is, sorry, let me rephrase that. Package A shows up as A1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. And then you have package B1, B2, B3, B4, right? That means that the data is distributed. Let's say my band folder, it's 2 gigabytes. Instead of that 2 gigabytes being copied the exact same way on all 5 hard drives, those 2 gigabytes are distributed across all 5 hard drives. So if I need to use this RAID 5 as a work drive, especially if I'm editing movies, editing films, editing TV, and a singular USB drive is too much, there's not much bandwidth, throughput to get through that. This now takes 4 hard drives, 5 hard drives, and distributes the workload through those 5 hard drives, okay? So then that 2 gigabyte album is gonna be accessed quicker because it's 5 hard drives working to get the data to you instead of 1 hard drive working by itself. And you're saying, and you're thinking, okay, but this doesn't necessarily keep a copy of everything. That's where the orange package works. So on the orange package is everything that's on A1, 2, and 3, and 4, all of it is on the orange package. So A1 through 4 is fully on orange. And then B1 through 4 is fully on the orange B package. So if hard drive disk 1 fails, all the data of A1, B1, C1, D1 is also found in the orange packages of everything else. So you can rebuild hard drive 1 based on all the data that's on the other packages. So it's the advantage of a RAID 1 system where the data is twice, but the data being there twice doesn't give you more speed and more efficiency because it's just a storage location you're not working from. If you want to use a storage system to work off of and have higher speeds and efficiency, a RAID 5 gives you the duplicity and the work environment. Okay? Next, cloud services.
Tay just went, this is what I wanted. He's excited for the cloud.
Finally, right?
We're on
Okay.
cloud 9, guys.
Sorry.
Okay, that was it.
I'm sorry, everybody.
I realized that I was muted and I laughed at that. That was good.
Joya is Joya. Oh my gosh.
She understands your dad jokes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aaron does too. You can see But Aaron's laughing too. He likes them.
Well, I'm a dad, so.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I won't start with my dad jokes. Nobody will laugh. Not even my kids laugh anymore.
Well, take notes, Aaron. Take notes. You better be writing it down.
Okay, sure. Okay. Okay, cloud. So here's some fairly known ones. There's Dropbox. There's OneDrive. There is iCloud, right? There is Google Drive or Google One, which is what it's called now. All those are iCloud storage facilities that can be used in many different ways. They can be used like I use Dropbox. I use Dropbox as a cloud delivery mechanism where whatever files I know I need access to at every moment for clients, it's there. I use iCloud to back up all my data from my cell phones, from my iPad, and from my laptop. So everything that's on those devices is on my iCloud. Okay. I'll use OneDrive for backing up all the material that I have here for Full Sail. That's
Wait,
just backup.
OneDrive is the Outlook thing, right?
OneDrive?
Yeah, OneDrive. It is correlates with Outlook.
Outlook does use it, but it is a standalone app. So you can go online and go to OneDrive.
Yeah.
And then it'll be just like Dropbox where you log in and here is your own storage space.
So I knew we had that for Full Sail and everything because I activated it with something. I was writing something on Word, like on Microsoft Word, and I clicked on OneDrive and because it says, like save, to Microsoft Word or save to OneDrive. And some of my stuff is in OneDrive and I was confused like a couple weeks ago. And so I installed something like with OneDrive. And so like now like on my computer, like in the,
it shows up.
Yeah, it shows up. So like how much storage do we get with Full Sail? And
that's a good question. I want to say 2 to 3 gigs.
Okay, so not.
You might want to ask. You might want to ask somebody in IT about that. Maybe one of the other professors would know. I want to say 2 to 3 gigs. And
another quick question is, will that be available to us after we graduate? The OneDrive?
Very good question. I do not know.
Okay.
But that would be very important to know. How long do you have until that expires? I'm assuming it's a yearly fee. So whatever they pay for, whether it's 2 or 3 years, you have it.
Yeah, because that's like all included in our tuition, obviously.
Right. I know that from what I understand, Full Sail does not get rid of your Full Sail emails.
That's what I've heard, yes.
So they can always access you if they need to. So that should be tied there one way or the other.
So Joya, since like I guess I could ask you this, sorry. So since you graduated from Full Sales and now you're working here, so does that mean you have two Full Sail accounts?
Yes, actually, I do. I have a student email and then I have my work email. You do maintain access to your student resources after you graduate. Generally, your email will switch over to an alumni instead of a at student.
Okay.
But I can still access my OneDrive. I converted everything I use iCloud too. So I converted everything over.
That's smart. Because I was thinking, you know, like, because I graduate in June of next year, and I was just thinking, you know, like, oh, you know, like it's coming up quickly, and you know, how does that actually work out? So, but yeah, so then do you get? This is just real quick. Sorry. Do you
Don't
get
worry about it.
you get more storage then if you think about it, Joya, like from your instructor account, like the
Yes.
work. I don't know.
Instructors get a terabyte, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say just the transition to education, I do have more storage than when I was just a regular employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those slideshows.
All the slash. Oh, what? But okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and that's good though, because like I'm not like I mean like obviously you guys are allowed to say some things and allowed not to, but I was just always curious like how it works out as far as like after graduation and you know the storage and stuff like that. Because when it came to high school and everything, we had Chromebooks, and I believe whenever I graduated in May of 2019, they had until July. It was always kind of like going around, you know, like the word on the street was like, you know, until July you have until to move all that stuff. And they weren't kidding, you know, it was until July. And so like, you know, now I don't have access to that email anymore, but I had transferred stuff over to my actual Gmail or like Google other account, you know.
Right,
So,
right.
okay.
I mean, there's so many resources, like Dropbox gives you,
Yeah.
I believe, 2.5 gigs for free, and if you refer somebody, they give you 500 megs.
Okay. Okay.
I've referred so many people that I have 9 gigs
Wow.
for free. I still refuse to pay for the cloud service. At some point I will.
Wait, you're not paying? You're
I'm
just
not paying. It's 9 gigs for free.
that is smart. Tay, write that down. Write that down.
Well, I mean, I've been using Dropbox for 10 years.
Okay.
So every time I had a client and the client, I asked, do you have Dropbox? I can send you the data of Dropbox. They would say, no, I don't. Oh, okay, well, let me show you what Dropbox is. I would send them an invite, and then they would create an account, and I would get free space.
That is
It's like rigging the system. You're
that-
forcing them to get it, and then you're
Yes,
Man.
yes.
is a genius.
You're a
Okay.
hustler.
All right, I'll let you continue now. All right.
So then I'm using those 9 gigs, and because I'm using Dropbox for delivery, then I don't necessarily need a business account or an enterprise account. If I was, I know some engineers that work off of the Dropbox, and their work drive is cloned to Dropbox. So they have something like a business account where they have 50 gigs available to them at all times. And then that means that, let's say I get flown to New York City and I work on a project, my work drive is cloned to Dropbox. I can send an email to one of the staff members over here and say, look, I finished working on this recording. Tomorrow, can you open up this session and start editing this song? I need you to do this and this and this and have it ready by 2 o'clock. So when I start my session at 2 o'clock, I can start working on that edited version. And the morning they show up, everything's already there. They can do the edits. Of course, they follow the same protocol. They open the session and call it edit. So that way there's no conflict. And then they work on the edit. And then at 2 o'clock, I open up, I see the edit, I open that session, do a save as, I call it overdub. and then I start doing overdubs. Then I finish, the next day morning, they edit everything else, call it overdub edit. And then we keep working back and forth, and everything is in several places.
So it's like a planned out assembly line, you know, like boom, 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 boom. Okay.
And because you're using Dropbox or OneDrive or Google One as a clone online access for everything, then your internal drive is being cloned up all the time as you're working things. It's also transmitting and making a copy of it. Okay, so if my baggage gets lost on the plane, and now I'm flying back to Orlando, but my bag is in Chicago with my hard drive and my laptop, I can still come over here and keep working, right? Because it's on the cloud and I can access it from my home computer. So 2 ways of thinking. There is on a one-to-one file where you only put files there that you need to have access all the time from all devices. And then the other way is an actual full backup of here's your work drive, and I am cloning that work drive to an online cloud service as a backup on the fly and allowing you to work out of different places you need it. Okay? Yeah, go ahead, Tay.
So I see that you have Backblaze here on the screen. I didn't know, were you going to go over that next?
Yes, that's the next thing. Thank you. So now there are other type of services where Backblaze and there's Backblaze and there is Carbonite, I believe is the name of the other one, where it works in the background and it just copies your entire laptop as you're working, and it just does a backup of everything that's on your laptop, on your work drive, whatever. Especially you'll see a lot of writers use this, so they're working on a script, and automatically it just backs up the script online. So if they lose a hard drive or the laptop, they can access their entire drive. They can go buy a new laptop the next day, sync to Backblaze, and Backblaze drops everything back on the new laptop, and you're ready to go.
So is that the same thing as similar to Time Machine? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So Time Machine is not cloud-based. Time Machine is, you need a physical hard drive for Time Machine to work.
Like the Seagate, for example?
Yes. So
Okay.
you can have an external hard drive, you can have one of the dock hard drives, you can have a NOS, but you have to assign a physical location for Time Machine to work.
And does that have to be, so I don't have I have my hard drive here, but like not plugged in currently. So say I was working on, I don't know, like a video or something in Premiere Pro, and I plug it in and I had Time Machine going on, would it back it up then? And then later I eject, I
Yes.
stop on the video. And
yes, depending how you have it. So you can have, there's different softwares that do this. So Backblaze might tell you a scheduled backup time. And then every day at midnight, it just backs it up. While we're at it, let's just jump to the next subject. Software, and this is a fine line where some of these cloud services have this software built in with their service, and some of these softwares you actually just physically have to do yourself. So ChronoSync, Carbon Copy Cloner are different companies that do that you can do archival and backups to. Time Machine is made to be more of a backup service. Okay, so and more important, Time Machine doesn't just do backup, it does archival and timestamp backups. So if you have a backup of your computer and you notice that there's a file missing that you might have erased, you don't know when you erased it, you can plug in your time machine, open time machine app, and then you will see multiples of that folder, and you can scroll through time until that file appears. And then you can say, oh, grab that folder and copy it to my drive now. And now I've pulled from the past something that's been backed up.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick, they talk about that, for Full Sail, they talk about that, when we're setting up our MacBooks and everything, about the time machine, but honestly, I don't remember them saying we need like an external hard drive. They just, yeah.
They didn't really get too
Yeah.
in specific about time machine. So
I mean, I know it was over a year ago for me, but I mean,
I know,
like, I don't remember them ever saying it's like, I would have never known actually until you said it, Aaron. So
Well,
I was so confused, like how, time machine actually works. So that's it.
so it basically, it is a incremental archival application. So meaning I worked on something today. The computer now the application now analyzes everything that I worked on today, goes through every file that I ever touched today, and it compares it to what's currently backed up. And then it says, I have 2 gigabytes of data that I have now changed and manipulated that is new. I am now going to back up that 2 gigabyte and I'm going to add it to the archival. And I'm going to fold it one on top of the other and on top of the other. And there's an index with everything that has happened per archival stamp. Everything that has changed. So then tomorrow, I work on some other things, another project or something else for Full Sail. And it says, oh, you changed Full Sail, you changed this, you changed that. Let me back that up to today's backup. And that gets indexed as today's changes. So it's not creating a backup of everything every time. It's building up progressively with what changes.
And you're not talking about just, like, if say you're in one application, like I said, like Adobe Premiere, and then you switch to Chrome or you switch to, I don't know, Adobe After Effects, it would back up all of those things?
It will back up everything that you asked it to. So when you open up Time Machine, you can go into the little Time Machine settings and you can tell it, what are you backing up? And you can say, back up my entire laptop, everything, to this hard drive. Or you can do like I do, and I open up Time Machine, I tell it, do not back up the downloads folder, because there's nothing that should be backed up there, and don't back up my iCloud folder, don't back up my Dropbox folder. Because those things are cloud-based, they're already multiple backups, and that service takes care of the backup. So I don't need an archival. And the Dropbox changes on a daily basis. I don't want all those changes to be kept, right? So now I pinpoint what is necessary to back up and what isn't necessary, okay? Now I create one of those. I have one hard drive that has Time Machine for my laptop. I have another hard drive that has a Time Machine for my work studio computer, because those are 2 different OSs with different applications with different functions. Everything that I have on my laptop is not everything that I have on my studio drive. And my studio computer is everything and only an audio workstation. The
one back at your, like,
whether it's Fat Planet or it's my home studio where I've been giving my classes, mm-hmm. there is an Apple Tower that is a workstation.
Okay.
It's got Mac Pro. So I only have things that are related to an audio workstation there. I don't have the entire Adobe suite there because I'm not using it for classes. I'm not using that type of work.
Okay. So do you use all Apple then? Like Apple, like,
Devices, yes.
okay,
Because in my industry, it works well for me to do it that way.
okay. Because I know you said like, with the cloud and everything. So I didn't know if like, like when you came into Fat Planet, if they had something with, Apple or, or you went out and.
Fat Planet has been Apple the whole time I've been there. And
Okay.
as more and more cloud services started, we've incorporated. So like there is a cloud calendar that all staff have. So there's a calendar for Studio A, for Studio B, for Studio C. There's for meetings. So sales guy books Studio A and puts it on the calendar. All of us get notified, Studio A has been booked. If a client calls me, says, can I book some time with you? I need to do some recording. And I ask them A or B, what days? I can pull it up and I can tell them what's available and I can book it myself and it pops up. And then the sales guy says, oh, Aaron just booked this. He's the engineer, it's his staff, that's it. Okay, so I use Time Machine to back up my OS hard drives. I use ChronoSync to back up work drive projects. And I use Carbon Copy to clone an entire hard drive. Because if I need to make a copy of my operating system and make it what's called a bootable copy, meaning it's an exact copy of what's inside my laptop. So I can swap hard drives and it'll be like nothing happened. You use Carbon Copy to make a bootable carbon copy of that drive. And then I'll use that to carbon copy OSs, or I'll use that to make carbon copies of archival hard drives, okay? Now, ChronoSync, I have it set up that I have a task. So for example, if you look at the window right now, you see that it says ALG Audio HD. That is my internal audio work drive. And then on the next column, it says client backup within the music library. That is my internal audio backup for that, that's on that hard drive. So there's 2 hard drives, 2 slots. And then I have created this script within ChronoSync. And it says every time I am done working with that client that day, I open the script. Let me show you. You see where it says Blue Animal ALG, and backup drive? I double click it, and that first window pops up. And that window automatically knows, look at Blue Animal hard drive on the Audio HD, and look at it on the backup drive, figure out what's there, and that's the window that pops up, and it says, left column is the work drive, right column is the backup, and it analyzes what the difference is. And then I hit the button to synchronize, and then it just copy pastes everything perfectly. And it keeps a record of everything that you see there and an index. And then I can tell it, do I want to keep an archive? You see that little checkbox under the big circle in the middle? I tell it, keep an archive of everything. So let's say both of you are working on a video editing on Premiere. You don't have the habit of making versions of it. But you do have the habit of every time at the end of the day, you do a ChronoSync backup. It doesn't take what you did today and replace it over what you did yesterday and erases yesterday. It moves yesterday's work into an archival folder and puts today's in the current folder. Let me show you. You see that green box there? That it creates. And everything that I've done that is a new version of the same file, it just puts an archive and it keeps that archive. And you can tell it, keep 5 archives of it, keep 20 archives, or keep infinite amount. Just keep adding to it. Okay? So that way, if you did something and it messed up, you can go to that archive and now pull from previous versions and open it up.
How organized is the archive? Is that archive folder? Does it go break it down even more into detail? So, say you have your blue animal, you've done it, say, for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month, and you have it set to a certain time, and
Yeah.
in the folder, does it archive? Okay, this is your blue animal archive. This right here may be your Halloween heart.
Yeah. So, for example, you see the first one song. This is better than this, right?
Mhm.
So when you'll see an archive, there's a folder called Better Than This, and then inside that, it'll tell you here's the session file for Better Than This. Backup 1, backup 2, backup 3, backup 4, backup 5, and it's labeled by dates, or it's indexed by dates.
Dates, perfect. Yes.
What if it's on the same date, like say it's on today, would it go by timestamp then?
Yes, it gets indexed one way or the other. So
Okay.
every time you hit the ChronoSync to do a backup, it does it, and it realizes it creates a new version, a new version, a new version. So at the end of a project, I decide, do I need to back up the archived items because those could be several gigs, or I just delete it because I don't need to back it up because the project is done and everything that I use is there, and that's it. Okay, now the good thing is you can do with ChronoSync, you can do a right to left column, you can do a left to right column, or you can do bidirectional synchronization. So I start working on this project in Studio A at Fatline, record the whole band. I put it on external hard drive and I use Synchronize to move everything to that external hard drive. Then I'm at home on my laptop editing stuff with headphones. The next day I come back to the studio, I open ChronoSync and I have that script, but I have that script already set up for bidirectional synchronization. So I run it, and now it analyzes the changes on both hard drives, and it copies the difference across both hard drives. So the data is the same on my external drive and in Studio A. Then I keep working that way. After that, I eventually go home and I do some mixing on it. I finish mixing the whole album, and I go back to the studio, I run the bidirectional synchronization one more time, and all the mixing gets transferred back to Studio A, and then it gets archived out of Studio A. So there's multiple things you can do with ChronoSync. Okay? Carbon Copy Cloner does several of these things in very similar ways, and it does other things in different ways. You can create scripts like that, and you can even create a little drop-down menu on the top dock bar, and then you drop it down, and it has scripts pre-labeled that say Blue Animal, and you click it, it automatically runs that script. So look into both of these, and by all means, you can email me with any questions. Both of these are about $40 to $50. That's it. It's no reason not to buy it because it's very inexpensive, and you do not have to keep paying yearly fees for upgrading it. So and you can keep up. They'll send you updates of it, and I haven't had to pay for one in 6, 7 years, 8 years that I've been using this. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
on my MacBook, I've been actually over here looking up, just looking up ChronoSync and the Carbon Copy Cloner. Where do you best suggest that we get it from?
straight from them, straight from the website. So if you go to ChronoSync, I think it's Ecom is the company, and I forget what carbon copy cloner's company is called, but you can go directly to that company's website, buy it directly from them, and that's it. And again, you can use either of them to do everything that I've asked, whether you want to back up your OS, whether you want to do scripts to create specific project backups, whether you want to use it for archival of and purging of data to backups. Okay, so I'll use Time Machine to back up my operating system on my laptops and my towers, and I'll use ChronoSync to back up and do backup of work files, work projects. And you can now do bootable clone copies on ChronoSync, but that's a little bit newer, and I already have the habit of doing that on Carbon Copy. Okay, now the last file that you see there is called NeoFinder. I won't get into that too much, but when you get to the point like you saw on previous slides, where you see all 19 hard drives that we've been collecting for 10 years, there's a lot of data there. NeoFinder helps you catalog all the data that you have on multiple hard drives. So you basically hook up the hard drive, run NeoFinder, it runs a script that identifies all the data that's there, and then you shelve the hard drive. And then let's say you've been working with this client for 5 years. Every year you've worked with a different project, and they ask you, can you find this asset? You would have to go through each hard drive to find it. Or you go to NeoFinder, you open a query and you try to find it through the search window. And if you've had a good, consistent file naming system, boom, it pops up by date, by project name, by location, whatever you want. The NeoFinder finds it within your archival catalog. And then now you know it's on hard drive 2015, drive 5, you go there, put it in, boom, it's there. Okay?
So I've in the past had an issue with backing up, and I did not know that the external hard drive that I had got needed to be configured first. How do you go about that configuration?
So the configuration is probably a format. So when you buy a blank hard drive at Best Buy or online, the majority of them come pre-formatted, especially if it's a USB drive, external USB drive in a case, it'll come pre-formatted, or for NTFS, which is a Windows only format, it'll come as macOS journaled, which is an Apple format only, or FAT32 or exFAT. That is a format that is allowed to be read and written by both operating systems. That's a read and write for Microsoft and Apple. But there are specific softwares that do not like FAT32's storage protocol for recording and for functioning. So for example, I have an external hard drive that is FAT32 or exFAT, so I can take it wherever, and any computer can read the data. That is a backup and data transfer hard drive. I have another hard drive that is a work drive, and because all the studios at Fat Planet, my studio, and all the studios that I work out of in Central Florida and basically in this industry of music work with Apple, Pro Tools requires that a audio work drive is formatted at macOS journaled. It will not work on anything else. And then you do that let me get out of here. Let me hide this. You go to Disk Utilities. Disk Utilities is in your application folders. And then you select your drive and you select Erase. And then a little drop-down window will pop up and it says, what do you want to format it as? Mac OS, Micro MS-DOS, or FAT. And then you name it, you run it, and it creates a new format for it. And then now it's ready for backup.
So you say that there's certain softwares that work with FAT.
There's certain softwares that require hard drives to be formatted to specific forms. So if I'm working in Pro Tools on a Microsoft, on Windows, it requires that the work drive be NTFS. If I'm on Apple, the work drive has to be Mac OS journals. That's what I mean.
Okay.
And that is completely dependent on each manufacturer. And then, for example, I do live sound. And a lot of the consoles right now in live sound are digital consoles, and there has a little USB slot on it. I have a couple of USB sticks that have console configurations and setups for shows, and that has to be formatted to FAT32. It does not accept anything else. So then I have FAT32 hard drives, and when I plug it in, a window pops up on the console that says, what are you doing? And I have a folder that says, whether it's a Yamaha console, an Avid console, a Proco, a Digico console, and I open it up, and there's a template with my layout, how I like it. And then I'll create a layout for that concert specifically. So understanding your formatting is important, and you can do all of that with Disk Utilities.
So I am today going to get my get a new external hard drive because I need to get one because I'm severely overdue for one, and I am
Good.
for a backup. What do you suggest as a good, not too pricey external hard drive for my backup, but one that's good with quality?
All right. So, I mean, quality of hard drives has gone up a lot. It is still a roll of the dice whether how long a hard drive will work. One thing that is important is if you store a hard drive, you have to hook it up and spin it at least once a year for 10 to 15 minutes. If you just leave it on the shelf for 5 years and you haven't touched it, the chances of it actually spinning up and the mechanisms working correctly go lower and lower for every year that you don't turn it on and spin it at least once. And that's almost more important. Seagate, Western Digital, Hitachi, those are all, the quality control has gone up greatly. You can go to Costco. At any Costco, they're having offers on USB drives, 2 terabyte, 5 terabyte, 8 terabyte. You can go to newegg.com, tigerdirect.com, and during holidays, they're going to have tons of Black Friday offers. That's why I tend to stock up on new bare drives or USB drives. Just get a good USB 3 or USB-C. Now they sell a USB-C that comes with a little adapter to make it USB-A format. And so it can be USB-C to USB to your laptop, or you can hook it up USB-A to whatever other computer, okay? and get something that is the equivalent size to what's on your hard drive, internal hard drive, ×2. So you have to be able to fit everything that's currently the capacity of your hard drive, but because you're going to be doing backups and archiving and continuously developing and adding to that backup, you need at least ×2 to be able to archive that progress. And if you're using something like Time Machine, once you've reached the limit, Time Machine will tell you, or give me a new hard drive, or I'm going to start erasing old archives. That answer your question?
Yes, that answered my question.
Okay, so ×2, ×3, whatever you can afford, USB 3, USB-C, whatever connection is compatible with your devices. And most of these plastic cases are good, as long as your idea is, I'm gonna use it as a backup, and it's gonna stay in my closet, stay in a drawer, and it's not gonna be banged around, then that's fine. If you are gonna be using it as a work drive, and it's gonna be like, in my case, I have a bag with me, and it's in my bag going everywhere, then get something a little more rugged, like a G drive or a LaCie drive. And those have metal casings. The LaCie drives have shock absorbers in them that kind of take a little more beating. Cool?
Yes, thank you.
Malia, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Glad you guys showed up. Glad you guys had so many great questions. This was good. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joya. Please applause for Joya for helping us today. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys around then.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take
All right.
care. See you.
Bye.
And
Bye,
thank you so much, Joya. Bye.
Bye. I didn't know if you needed me to hang on.
No, we're good. I'm just gonna stop and I'm gonna let this render and we should be good to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
so
letting me
much.
help. This was awesome.
Good. Hope you got something out of it too.
Oh yeah, I was taking tons of notes.
Oh, I saw you.
I was like head down, like right.
Good,
This is
good.
awesome.
Glad
Yeah.
you got something out of it. Okay. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye.